Hi, chat room. Let me scroll this down to see you guys. Hello. By the way, like, subscribe. Welcome to Housemarque's Mega Worldwide. All right. Shall we? Shall we? Because we have giant, after that kind of fun, good news, we have some giant, heaping, steaming piles of the business to get to. Starting with, some people are familiar with this guy. This is Ronald Reagan. It's an old picture of him, but not that old. Taken sometime in the mid. Oh wait, dear God, that's just Ron DeSantis, aging like sushi on a windowsill because of his campaign being rough, I suppose, or just bad lighting. We can all be the victim of bad lighting. There's nothing to be ashamed of. He and I think, are the same age. Something like that. So, but apparently, I think this might be a cocaine joke. If he had a sense of humor, Ron DeSantis, Biden team has been literally blowing it. Okay, you don't literally blow. You don't. As a matter of fact, if you want to make the blow joke in terms of cocaine, when I said they were blowing it, that's not exactly what I meant. You need something like that. You know what I mean? Like cut against it. You know? Yeah. Everybody in the White House is trying to blow it or something. It being blow. You want it all, but you can't have it. All right. So this is his take on, and by the way, he's currently number 2.
I like fighting number 2.
Yeah. Trump's, favorite punching bag, Ron DeSantis, which I understand is a harder, more committed way of joking about his name, but I think it's way better than the DeSanctimonious thing. I just don't know how that lands. It just seems kind of trite and weird. Why can't you go, give it up for Ron DeSantis? You know what I mean? Like, come on. That wouldn't kill.
I like fighting number 2.
Yes, I understand that, but we're enough about your colon. Here we go.
Folks, joining me now is 2024 GOP presidential candidate, conservative Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. He's also the author of The Courage to Be Free.
My time in the fields of Ireland, where I ran around with my skirt off and my pants around my ankles, penguining my way through the fields with the courage to be free. Courage to
Florida's blueprint for America's revival. Governor, it's great to see you. You were down at the border last week where you unveiled your border plan, and reports indicate that the federal government is actually cutting through Texas-bought razor wire and criminally trespassing on private land to do the cutting. Question.
Well, the state doesn't have the right to put that stuff on public land. All right, I haven't read that story. We'll dive into it later.
What is your plan to reverse the Biden regime's promotion of illegal immigration into this country? And if you were the
citation needed that there is one, but please.
Governor of Texas, how would you respond to a federal government captured on camera breaking laws to facilitate illegal immigration?
Hold on. I got to grab that article. It's going to bug me. This is from the Texan. Okay, so let's, it's from the Texan. Wop wah. Wop wah. Wop wop wop. Wop. Okay, the Texan. Federal border guards caught wire, something like that. Federal boards cut wire. Allow. This is from the Texan. Here's the paper on the Texan. Finding out those federal border guards cut barbed wire to allow illegal immigrants to cross per report. The state of Texas uses barbed wire and razor wire as part of its efforts to prevent illegal immigration along the southern border. Federal border guards could be seen cutting barbed wire and allowing illegal immigrants to enter. I'm sorry, there's some words are more difficult than others.
Under siege, Second Amendment.
No, not that.
Free health care for illegal. Look.
I'm fine. Federal border guards could be seen cutting barbed wire and allowing illegal immigrants to enter through private property in Eagle Pass, according to a report by Fox News. A border correspondent for the network tweeted a video of border police cutting the barrier, which was placed by the state of Texas as part of its effort to prevent unlawful entries across the border. The barbed wire is on private property, and the state of Texas placed it there with the landowner's consent, per the social media post. U.S. Customs and Border Protection told Fox News that the group included children and they were already in the country, prompting border agents to take them into custody. The agency highlighted its authority in the border security domain. It is federal responsibility to enforce U.S. immigration laws. U.S. Border Patrol continues to enforce U.S. immigration laws. The individuals had already crossed the Rio Grande from Mexico, were on U.S. soil, and are subject to U.S. immigration laws. Individuals who cross unlawfully will be subject to the Unlawful Pathways Rule, which places common sense conditions on asylum eligibility, with certain exceptions. Those who do not establish a legal basis to remain in the United States will be removed. See, the issue is that the Texas was like, we don't give a fuck. You're already on American land. You made it that far. But now that you're inside the United States of America, we're going to make you crawl through razor wire with your children, even though we're going to expel you. Yeah. In 2021, Greg Abbott ordered the Texas Facilities Commission to begin using barbed wire, razor wire, and other barriers in efforts to secure a southern border and prevent illegal immigration, which didn't work, by the way, because they had already crossed the border. In addition to constructing physical barriers, Abbott's strategy has been to use the state's criminal code to prosecute illegal immigrants for trespassing on private property. The state also transported illegal immigrants by bus to sanctuary cities across the country, which I guess drops them off on private property as well, but that's another thing entirely, including Washington, D.C., New York City, and elsewhere. There you go. So that's the idea. These people were already in the country. Yeah, so that might be where this, yeah. But, you know, that's all. Federal border guards cut barbed wire to allow illegal immigrants to cross, per report. Cross where the barbed wire was, not the border, though. This would be a lie. And by the way, Hayden Sparks, no relation that I know of. And Hayden, I don't have any problem with the reporting on the article, but I'm just letting you know that Chris Salcedo is misrepresenting your work.
Trespassing on private land to do the...
Well, if they're on private land, then how do we know that they are not being trapped on private land by the landowner behind barbed wire? At what point does the federal government allow private U.S. citizens to keep foreign nationals on their property behind razor wire? When does that become illegal, dickhead? Talk about a slippery slope. The fuck kind of... Yeah, Salcedo seems to be very upset that, you know, this slippery slope to slavery rule isn't going to be allowed to go forward.
Cutting. Question. What is your plan to reverse the Biden regime's promotion of illegal immigration into this country? And if you were the governor of Texas, how would you respond to a federal government captured on camera breaking laws?
Nope. Actually carrying out the law.
To facilitate illegal immigration?
Well, I think these are great questions. One, day one as president, will declare a national emergency. We'll mobilize all available resources, including the military, to stop the invasion at the southern border.
So what are you going to do? When we're talking about women and kids especially, you going to open fire on them? Or what is it, flamethrowers? Predator drones? What's the napalm? You know, kind of Vietnam style? Just call in... you know, a napalm strike on lines of trees, like whenever they get to like a zombie movie, you know, whenever they get to the wall, there's enough of them build up, then call in the strike and then wait for them to refresh after they climb on top of those bodies and then do enough. Is that the plan? I mean, I'm just talking about the legal asylum seekers, not the illegal ones at this point. Not that you would make the distinction at all, but
yes, we will construct the border wall because I think that that's important to have, but we're going to...
On private property? You're going to construct a border wall on private property? So, will be the absolute edge of the private property, which would be Mexico, which you can't legally do, or it would be inside the private property that goes right up to the border, therefore giving territory to Mexico, just like Trump did. It's the first president in, whatever, 100 years to give U.S. territory to Mexico? Cool.
reestablish the sovereignty of this country. We are not going to allow bogus asylum claims to overrun our border like
Yeah, and gnarly ones either, guys. Bogus.
it's happened under Biden. And in terms of states, we're going to empower states to enforce immigration law.
Yeah. Or skirt them in the case of Florida, where you constantly use undocumented workers in almost every restaurant, every kitchen, every entertainment facility in the entire freaking state. Ironically, except Disney, where the standards are actually higher, but you've been attacking them.
Texas is putting up barriers. They're putting up barbed wire because they're trying to defend their sovereignty. We have a federal government now that's opposing them doing that. I want the states and locals to be partners with us so we can enforce immigration law. But I think the thing that we're going to do that no one's been willing to do is recognize, I was actually down in Arizona a few weeks before we announced our plan, and I was in a place where we did have the border wall. There was major steel beams. This is like really good stuff, right?
Right. It's like really good stuff, right? Not this bogus stuff.
Well, it turns out the cartels will cut through the steel beams, smuggle in
Excuse me, slat fence.
product, and our federal government does nothing to stop them. And so what I've said is we're going to have rules of engagement.
So you just watched it happen? You're standing there with the guys, and they just was like, watch this. Watch, these guys are going to come right through. Shouldn't you guys be doing something about this? Yeah, we don't, really. Why not? Because there's a Democrat in the White House. What do you mean? Well, I mean, if there's a Republican in there, we act like we're working real hard. We stand real close to the border. I mean, shit still gets through. Don't get me wrong. I mean, these boats aren't going to pay for themselves. But when a Democrat's in there, we just stand back, watch it happen. Watch this. Here comes a catapult of fentanyl. Yep, there we go. We'll seize every 15th one so they can put it on the news. But most of them, we just, hey, what's up, Gary? Yeah. No, there's another bale over there behind the, yeah, I think it just landed a little left. The wind's blowing today. Yeah, cool.
On that border, if the cartels are cutting through our border wall to try to move product, that's going to be the last thing they do because they're going to end up stone cold dead. We are going to use force at the border to be able to defend the American people.
Okay, so effectively, we are going to be, anybody who approaches the wall will be shot. This is Fortress America. If anybody is caught cutting the wall, and granted, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking what I'm thinking, which is that the cartels will force people that owe them money or that they have effectively enslaved, make them do the cutting. Rather, I mean, you don't want to lose one of your good enforcers or one of your heavy gang members, right? So you just go, hey, if you want to pay off your debt without me killing your kid, go cut a hole in the wall, and DeSantis will blow your brains out. It's win-win.
And we are going to lean in against the cartels directly, not just in terms of what they're doing on the ground, but also interdicting the precursor chemicals to fentanyl.
Oh, the ones that are leaving Arizona and going to Mexico? So is somebody cutting a hole in the wall going that direction, or they just slide the precursors? Are probably smaller, so they just slide them right through.
That are being brought in by sea from China into these Mexican ports. So I think it requires
yeah, because we can't have them competing with the Arizona fentanyl precursor factories.
All hands on deck approach. At the end of the day, the thing that I saw down there that was that stuck with me was just the humiliation that as an American, we don't even have control over our own country. We've ceded our border to Mexican drug cartels. That is pathetic, and that is not, I think, what the...
Well, that's what Title 42 was about. That was the Trump plan. Cede the, let the cartel guys, charge everybody money to sneak across, and if they get caught, we kick them out. They try again, and try again, and try again, because under Title 42, you can't be punished for it. So they can keep, just first one's free, second one they, cost you some money, third one costs you a little more money, fourth one you're carrying drugs, or you're, bringing in a child or another, I guess some sort of human trafficking arrangement. I don't know, a kidney. Maybe. I don't know. It's a thought.
American people want.
Oh, I think most Americans would agree with you, Governor, that you don't want to treat narco-terrorists with kid gloves the way the Biden regime is doing.
Yeah, but I also don't want to open fire on women and children. So I do need a measured approach. This all hands on deck idea seems that everybody on deck is manning a machine gun seems a bit fucked up considering the varying amount of humanity that shows up at our border. But, you know what? If a truck full of auto parts goes down the wrong road and you want to just blow it up just to make a point, I mean, who in Florida would disagree with you in the entire fucking state?
You know, part of the ramifications of Biden's open borders, you know, it's the free
Yeah, we don't have one.
flow of illegal aliens.
No, it isn't.
Foreign enemies and drugs. In fact, drugs are so abundant, Governor, in Joe Biden's Democrat America that they've made their way into the Biden White House. Your reaction to the discovery of cocaine in the West?
I appreciate your true to form. I guess I forget where he's from originally, but a true pronouncing it properly, cocaine, like he's Scarface all of a sudden.
Swing.
Well, what came to mind for me is we've seen for over 2 years the Biden administration blowing it on a whole host of issues. I guess this means that's a little bit even more literal than we had thought previously.
Oh, God. Blowing it, and it blow and blow, and he's just trying to find his way to the word blow. It was actually worse than I thought. I gotta say, the joke was actually worse than I thought. And we knew it was coming. He definitely worked it out with his team, and Salcedo was given a note to set him up with it. Yeah. This is, you know what this is like? If you really want to, this is what you just saw between these two guys, the sort of, ham-handed setup and the poorly crafted punchline and the kind of like feeling, like groping in the dark for some semblance of sarcasm passing itself off as wit. This is basically like Greg Gutfeld's two brain cells meeting in the shitter. Yeah.
But isn't it interesting how you have this cocaine there? I don't see the FBI and the DOJ mobilizing and doing like a real serious investigation.
They evacuated the whole White House. They evacuated the White House over a bag of white powder because nobody knew like whose it was. Now, the argument would be is if no, that's clearly Blinken's buddy's blow or whoever. Or Hunter was like, that's mine. Sorry, and they're okay with it. They look the other way. It's just it's wanton disregard. The Bidens are blah blah blah. If any of that was true, it would just been swept under the carpet. You never would have heard about it. But it sounds to me like somebody on the Republican side went over there and went.
Of this, I kind of feel like if they're a Republican White House, that you'd have swarms of DEA and FBI agents trying to get to the bottom of who brought that into the White House. I think
Well, I don't think Don Jr. had to bring any of his in his bottom. Actually, I thought I think he just had it in the pocket. But
they're just treating the Biden administration with kid gloves, and unfortunately,
again, what do you mean with kid gloves? They are investigating how it got there. They're not doing pat downs of the fucking administration, even during the Trump years, for Christ's sake. I would like to remind you that according to the QAnon people, after Trump left office, or the day he was leaving office, hundreds of children were released from captivity under the White House. Hundreds.
That's what we've come to expect out of this federal government, that they just have two standards of how they pursue the law.
Well, no. Again, also, by the way, if Trump was just hiding cocaine in the boxes in Mar-a-Lago, none of us would have heard about it.
Yeah, no kidding. And you know, what if the white powder had been a different white powder? I mean, my goodness, this lackadaisical approach this federal government is taking to this is quite.
What? They evacuated the White House. The fucking West Wing was evacuated.
Perplexing. Democrats, Governor, in the meantime, have tried to make it fashionable to attack people of faith in this country, in particular Catholics. And now.
What? In particular? Biden's a fucking Catholic, dum-dum. What are you talking about?
We're learning that another first.
Evidence produced thus far depicts an almost dystopian scenario during the COVID period. Perhaps best character. Oh, this is the dude, Terry Doughty, the U.S. District Judge who wrote the QAnon screed against the not allowing the Biden administration to talk to Twitter because of things that were done during Trump.
Amendment protection was violated by this regime. According to a federal judge, the right of free speech. The judge ruling that the Biden regime acted as an
No, all of the accounts that they're talking about happened in 2020. There was no regime. There was no Biden, as a matter of fact. Even after he'd been elected in November, he's still not president till January when he actually takes the frigging oath.
Orwellian Ministry of Truth during the China virus pandemic.
First of all, again, all happened during Trump.
And to add insult to injury, the Biden folks are saying they're going to
add insult to injury. This dickhead is not suing Trump and everyone around him for doing this. Yeah.
Appeal this decision.
Of course they are.
So they can continue suppressing Americans' free speech in collusion with big tech.
Or they can still contact them to warn them about ISIS opening up accounts and using code online to plan terrorist attacks. But, like Salcedo gives a fuck. Hey, the tree of liberty must be watered with the blood of you guys, not him.
Now, Governor, if you become president, how are you going to reverse a federal government weaponized against our people's rights? And how do you recommend Americans fight it today?
Well, in Florida, we actually passed legislation that prohibits any state or local official from colluding with big tech to
colluding with big tech. Yeah. Do you define colluding?
Censor American speech. We think it's fundamental.
Colluding with big tech to censor Americans' speech. What if they're not American accounts? What if they're sock puppet accounts? What if Americans are parroting stuff that they think are other Americans unknowingly, and the government just wants to tell them that so that if they still want to do it, they certainly can, but they should know that, Joe from Indiana is actually, Yuri from Macedonia.
That you have a right to speak. And these companies engage in a lot of censorship.
Yeah, you have the right to speak, but you do not have the right to anyone else's microphone.
That's problematic in and of itself because they're monopolies, and then they're
not monopolies. Dickhead, they're showing 6 icons from fucking, that's one. Yeah. So 5 different companies.
Liability protection under the idea that they're open marketplaces. But as we see.
No, they're not. They're not open marketplaces. They are not. But I mean, I don't know why these guys are still making the child porn is fine argument. He seems to be okay with this. You should be able to sell guns and child porn online, right? Is that the argument you're making? I mean, because it's a stifling of free speech. As a matter of fact, the government shouldn't be allowed to even tell private companies. Like the government have rules about, I guess, telephone lines and stuff that, the bandwidth of cell phones. But at a certain point, if it's your Wi-Fi,
they apply terms of service disfavorably against conservative voices.
No, they don't.
So
conservatives tend to, in expressing their political opinions in a lot of these cases, tend to use more exaggerated and violent language. They're not all the time. And ask any lefty who's been put in Twitter jail, they'll tell you that you step over a certain line and they pay attention to you because you do it a bunch of times. Quite frankly, most of the right wingers that get kicked off or got kicked off were allowed to go, be habitual line steppers forever. Trump included. Trump was constantly breaking the terms of service and managed to stay on anyways.
Censorship in itself is a big issue that we're going to tackle as president. And
you can't, because that in and of itself is a form of censorship. People can choose to go to a private movie theater. The government cannot force people in that theater to watch a different movie because a single member decides to overtake it when everybody else is paid to be there. Especially when the place itself is built on, privately created, on a timescape of this movie starts at 7, movie starts at 9. Nobody gets to just interrupt that in the middle. And if the government has the ability to say, well, a couple of people feel like they're right to to yell and scream during a movie is being upset because this is a rom-com and they wanted to see the horror movie, but it's not on until later, and they wanted to play now so they can scream is fucking dumb.
We want to make sure everyone has the ability to speak. But when
You do. Don't believe me? Go outside and talk to your yard.
federal government colludes to be able to get tech to censor, that is absolutely a violation of the First Amendment.
No, it isn't.
This judge was absolutely right.
No, he's not.
You can't do indirectly what the First Amendment would forbid you to do directly. So it's a gross abuse of power. We saw it during COVID, where Fauci was basically telling Facebook and these companies, what should be up, what should be down. Remember, early on,
they were also seeking his guidance. They didn't also take his guidance all the time. Same thing with the FBI. This is what the Twitter files told us. What we learned from the Twitter files was the FBI came and said, A, B, and C are bad. And Twitter said, we agree on A and B. We don't agree on C. That's where all the censorship dies.
in COVID, if you spoke out against lockdowns, they'd take your article down.
Nope. It was how you spoke about it.
If you spoke out against mask mandates, they'd take it down.
Nope.
They censored stuff that I was doing with really eminent anti-lockdown scientists from Stanford and Harvard and Oxford talking about how kids need to be able to go to school without wearing masks. Big tech was censoring that, but that was at...
Well, you have to understand, big tech in particular has a very young audience. And if they're right, and it's safer to have a lockdown during this thing, then more of their clients and potential clients in the future survive. If they're wrong, that's still true. If you're wrong, a lot of their potential customer base dies. On a material business level, it is a violation of their fiduciary duty to listen to a douche like you and say we shouldn't stay away from each other during a pandemic for stretches of time. And even if a kid brings the chances of a kid like catching it and dying from it are low, but catching it and giving it to an older adult who dies, and then that kid has that guilt for the rest of their fucking life, and they don't tend to want to share pictures of their lunch on Instagram when they've been through shit like that.
The direction of the federal government. So I think it was a massive abuse of power. We're going to clean all of that out.
By realizing it's not a thing.
As president, if you are colluding and you're in the FBI or DHS or any of these with tech,
what does collude mean?
You're going to get canned. You're going to be shown the door. We're going to have zero tolerance for that.
You just quick trials. We're going to have quick trials. But this was actual information. This is we're looking for a child predator, and people were posting this guy thinking it was like a meme, and we were telling them this meme is actually how this guy is targeting children, and people were kind of downplaying it, and so we were trying to warn people directly, like, hey, this guy's a real threat, and he's a serial killer, he's on the loose, he's targeting children and stuff, and it doesn't matter, zero tolerance, out you go, you're colluding with big tech.
Because it really strikes at the fundamentals of a free society.
You said gross abuse of power. I think that's Biden's slogan is going to be running under Biden, gross abuse of power. I wanted to get you to weigh in on
wacky
on the latest findings, Governor, in the probe into the Biden family's so-called business dealings. Freedom of Information request has just revealed that a staffer for then Vice President Joe Biden CC'd Hunter Biden on an email about a scheduled call with former Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko. Now, it bears pointing out, Governor, that nobody elected Hunter Biden, and I know your children are quite young, but can you
conceive of Jared Kushner and Ivanka making a $2 billion? Hold on, let's back that up. Let's take a look at what that article was. Hold on. This is Washington Times. Okay, give me this 1 second. Let's go to here and go to Washington Times. A White House scheduling email. A White House scheduling email sent to VP Hunter and then let's say Poroshenko. Whoops. Poroshenko, yeah. Washington Times. This is the actual article. Here we go. Let's check it out. Whoops, get out of here. Already described on the but I don't want to. I'm not. Like, no, go away. All right. This is. Whoops. This is the whole thing. Here we go. White House. Whoops. Obama White House looped in Hunter Biden an email to his VP dad about Ukraine. A White House scheduling email sent to. Let me go this here. Joseph R. Biden, ahead of a call with Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko, was also sent to his son Hunter, who was serving on the board of a Ukrainian energy firm looking to escape a corruption probe. Assertion without evidence. In the call, the elder, Mr. Biden, urged Poroshenko to continue reforming Ukraine's prosecutor general office. It's unclear whether Hunter Biden was involved in the call outside of getting an email alert about it. Time of the call, however, coincides with Hunter Biden's $1 million a year job on the board of Burisma, which allegedly hired him to dodge charges from the scheduling email was sent on May 26, 2016. From Biden's assistant, John S. Flynn. It was disclosed by the National Archives in response to the Freedom of Information, mined by an online FOIA who gave it to the Washington Times. The scheduling email from Mr. Flynn provided Mr. Biden and Hunter Biden with the details of the vice president's upcoming trips to Delaware and Rhode Island, as well as the call to Mr. Poroshenko. Boss, 8:45 a.m. prep for 9 a.m. call with President Poroshenko. Then we're off to Rhode Island for infrastructure event, and then Wilmington for UDEL commencement. Nate will have your draft remarks delivered later tonight with your press clips in the morning, Flynn wrote in the then Vice President Hunter Biden. It's unclear why Mr. Biden's son was included as the recipient of the email. Might be because he was going home, because that had to do with his home state where they actually were. Flynn did not require. Mr. Biden's call to Poroshenko occurred as executive of the Burisma Energy Company. We're seeking Mr. Biden's help through Hunter Biden to end the corruption probe. Then why would they want the person in? The guy who was put in actually did go after them. Never mind. We've been through this. The message from Mr. Flynn looped in Hunter Biden via his company address at Rosemont, Seneca. The younger Biden co-founded the firm. Several blah, blah, blah. Mr. Biden has repeatedly clicked to read more of your comments. According to the readout of the call provided by the White House, the two leaders discussed the importance of continuing institute reforms in the Office of the Prosecutor General, the significance of Ukraine's progress towards implementing judicial reforms, and meeting IMF conditions. IMF, again, was holding back. If they didn't fire Shokin, the IMF was going to cut off $70 billion worth of aid to Ukraine. Not $1 billion in loan guarantees, which they were getting from us. $70 billion in direct investment through the IMF. 2 months earlier, Mr. Poroshenko had ousted Viktor Shokin amid accusations that he failed to investigate and prosecute widespread corruption in the country. Mr. Biden, among those who pushed for Shokin's ouster, bragged about it. We saw that. The CFR traveled to Kiev, threatened Mr. Poroshenko. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Charges of Mr. Shokin failed. Let's see. Hold on. 2 months earlier, at ouster. So this is after Shokin's already gone. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting. Yeah, this is after it's done. Charges that Mr. Shokin failed to prosecute corruption have been challenged, and Mr. Shokin appears to have been pursuing charges against Burisma. No, he wasn't. He was stalling them. There was a corruption case filed against him, but he wasn't acting on it, as he didn't do with a lot of these well-connected Russian oligarchs. Nearly 2 months before Shokin's firing, according to Lindsey Graham, Mr. Shokin's office announced the seizure of property from Burisma's holding founder, Mikhail Zlochevsky. Newly released details from the paid FBI informant include a claim that Mr. Biden and Hunter received $5 million. Yeah, we saw that. Trusted and highly credible FBI informant said Mr. Zlochevsky played the bribes between 2015 and 2016. That's Rudy Giuliani, by the way. Prove me wrong. Zlochevsky said he had audio recordings documenting Mr. Biden's involvement, and he's saving them for a tight spot. So I wait to hear them. They'll be great. None of these claims have been verified, and Mr. Zlochevsky's whereabouts are unknown. That's the great thing about the Republican whistleblowers. They're so transparent, you can see right through them. Let's see. House Democrats impeached Trump for this to dismiss the Burisma bribery allegations against Biden and believe the story and the informant were fabricated. I agree. I don't think there's any credibility to that person, said Gerald Nadler. I don't think he exists. I think this is nonsense from the Republicans. Yep, that's pretty much right on the money. Okay, so yeah, it's a scheduling email because he's coming home, and they forwarded it there. Yeah, and this is after Shokin's already gone. So,
former Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko. Now, it bears pointing out, Governor, that nobody elected Hunter Biden, and I know your children are quite young. but can you conceive at any time in your political career where it would be a legal and legitimate function for you or your staff to CC one of your children about a meeting with a foreign dignitary? And if not, Governor,
He didn't have a meeting. It was a phone call. Secondly, it was about his travel to Delaware where they live.
what do you think is going on here?
I think it happened after the fact. So obviously, where does the bribe have to be set up? All right, well, we'll figure it out.
Well, all you got to do is look at the bank balances, right? I mean,
Yeah, look at him. I agree. Look at that. We found a bridge point. Yes. Look at the bank balances. That's right. Look at what the Bidens have declared and look what they actually have. And look at the fact that it actually matches up. And then look at Trump's Chinese bank account. When did the money come in for that? Would it be right after TPP was closed?
massive amounts of money flowing into the coffers of the Biden family. Now, the corporate press in this country, the Democratic Party, and Biden himself would have us all believe that that's just one big coincidence, that had nothing to do.
Well, considering it was after he was no longer president and wasn't vice president and wasn't planning on running for president, it has to be even bigger than that. It has to be they were paying him for political weight he no longer had.
With the fact that he was leveraging his former position and current position at the time as VP to help enrich their family. And if you believe that,
his former position as VP during the Trump administration, which obviously carried a lot of weight. Can I, if I may, on a side note, Mr. Chairman? Okay. Let's see. Let's go to here. We'll open this up. There we go. What about Rudy Giuliani, who's the president's lawyer during his time in office, and especially around these impeachments? What does Rudy Giuliani's longtime go-between know about Rudy's work in Ukraine? Vitaly Prus introduced Rudy Giuliani to Ukraine's key players. Now Democrats want Giuliani to share all of his communications with Prus. In July, Rudy Giuliani was desperate for more information about Hunter Biden's work in Ukraine, so he turned to his longtime go-between for Ukraine deals, a 44-year-old New York-based businessman named Vitaly Prus. According to Prus, Giuliani asked him to call Prus's close friend, the owner of Burisma, the Ukrainian natural gas company that formerly had Hunter Biden on its board. Giuliani wanted to know if the owner, Mykola Zlochevsky, would meet with him to talk about Biden. But Zlochevsky made it clear he wanted nothing to do with it. Prus told NBC News in an interview at a restaurant in Midtown Manhattan. Among the unresolved mysteries in the impeachment saga is how Giuliani, the president's lawyer, and a man with little-known background in foreign policy, became the White House's point man in Ukraine. The answer in part lies with his relationship with Prus, who has acted as the former New York mayor's political and business matchmaker in the former Soviet Union for years. Few people have crossed paths with as many central characters in the Ukraine impeachment saga as Prus. He met Energy Secretary Rick Perry on a trip to Israel in 2010. On flights back and forth to Kiev, he struck up an acquaintance with America's top diplomat, Bill Taylor. At investment conferences, he met the former U.S. Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch, who was ousted from her post in Kiev in May, partly through Giuliani's efforts. And Prus knows most of the Ukrainian political players. The website for Prus's company, Tri-Global Strategic Ventures, is a veritable slideshow of Giuliani's connections in Ukraine in recent years, with pictures of him smiling with local officials, and almost all the relationships laid out in the website's photos are links that House Democrats now want to know more about. The Democratic lawmakers are demanding to see all of Giuliani's communications, contracts, and documents related to Prus as part of their impeachment inquiry. Giuliani has refused to cooperate with a congressional investigation. His lawyer says Giuliani believes the congressional subpoena is overbroad and unduly burdensome and seeks documents beyond the scope of legitimate inquiry. Shortly after Democrats subpoenaed Giuliani, Prus's company took down its website without explanation. Prus said the timing was a coincidence, and it was merely for website maintenance. It's now back up. Prus played down his Forrest-like Gump role in the impeachment drama. I think Zelig is really where they're leaning. Zelig-like. Yeah. In the impeachment drama, and said he is befuddled that his name cropped up in the subpoenas. He said that despite his relationship with Giuliani, he had nothing to do with the events that formed the basis of the impeachment inquiry into whether President Donald Trump withheld military aid. I have no idea why in the world I'm in there. Giuliani is now under investigation. Okay. A relationship dating back to 2003. Born in Belarus, Prus, like John Wick, Prus, Prus. I'm going to call him that from now on. Don't break me down. Prus. Registered his business. I'm sorry. Yeah, I got to make fun out of this bullshit sometimes because it's so tiresome. To a Passaic, New Jersey address in 2005, according to public records, he first focused on the introduction business. The introduction business. Now, keep in mind the accusations about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and Tony Baba Booey and all these other folks is that this was all about Hunter was selling the introductions and literally that was Giuliani's business partner in Ukraine's business. Okay. Where he matched high-level Western officials with companies willing to pay for them appearing at public and private events. He's a U.S. citizen and a New York resident, but travels constantly. In the last 30 days alone, he's been in Israel, Vienna, Kiev, and Kazakhstan. He said the bulk of his work today is drumming up investments in American nursing homes from Ukraine, Russia, and Kazakhstan. Okay. Prus's bio says he was successfully created and developed strategies for companies like the Russian state oil and gas monopoly Transneft, which was sanctioned by the U.S. in 2014 after the Russian invasion of Crimea. It's coincidence. It's like his website going down. It just happens. It's like the timing. It's just weird timing. You know how that happens. When he asked about his dealings with Transneft, he said he only presented the company with a proposal, and it was long before sanctions were imposed. Prus said his relationship with Giuliani started back in 2003, when he was looking for a big Western name to address the board of Magnitogorsk Iron and Steelworks, one of the largest steel companies in Russia. At the time, Giuliani became internationally famous after 9/11 on New York, was commanding $100,000 per speech through Washington Speakers Bureau. His speeches earned him an estimated $8 million a year, according to his divorce filings at the time. I guess this is before he married his first cousin? Right. Prus said he made a request through the Speakers Bureau and negotiated a payment for the appearance, and then he said he went with Giuliani on the trip, flying him first to Moscow and then on to the Ural Mountains for the meeting. He said at that point, he and the former mayor hit it off. And through the years, he found Giuliani to be widely loved and respected, especially with the Russian hookers. On the website, there are photos, listen to me, I'm getting a New York accent just talking about these assholes. In May 2008 and April 2015, showing Giuliani with Vitaly Klitschko, an ex-boxer who is now the mayor of Kiev. On his visits to New York City, Prus said he made the connection. House lawmakers leading the impeachment inquiry have raised questions about offers of anything of value that Giuliani provided to Klitschko. Representatives Giuliani's security company visited the State Emergency Service of Ukraine in 2017, according to the agency's website. A year later, there's a picture of Giuliani on Prus's website in a New York conference room with an official from Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city. Prus said he made it all happen. And when Giuliani met with Ukraine's then President Petro Poroshenko in late 2017, this would be after Biden had talked to him. There's Prus sitting at the end of the table. There they are. That's Petro Poroshenko right there. That's who that is. Look at him with the mayor. With the hand of thing. And like they're deciding who will slap who first in the great European tradition of the slapping game. Let's see. Giuliani spoke at the event in 2018, but this year he pulled out last minute once a White House whistleblower came forward accusing Giuliani of carrying out a shadow foreign policy in Ukraine to help Trump's reelection. Prus said yes, he attended the conference and was planning to meet Giuliani there, but he did not arrange the appearance. There's nothing wrong about the Armenian conference. They do it all the time. It's about security cooperation investments, nothing about Russia or U.S. or Ukraine, he said in the text exchange. In June, Prus said he met Giuliani in a hotel lobby in Paris. Giuliani was with two Florida businessmen, who are now convicted felons. Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman. Lev and Igor. Two Giuliani associates who have been charged with campaign finance violations linked to an alleged effort to inject foreign money into the U.S. election. The two have been linked to a smear campaign against then U.S. Ambassador Yovanovitch, which Giuliani helped orchestrate, so he had no idea what they were up to. Bruce said before the meeting he had not heard of the two men. I haven't run into them during my work at all. No idea. Tell me if you find out. I'm interested to know who was funding them. He said he was sure it wasn't Russian. Kremlin doesn't work with people like them. It's too low for Kremlin. Prusin said he finds impeachment drama disgusting. Does not believe Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky was coerced. Said in addition, blah, blah, blah. Okay, he's on that side. The case is closed. As of the gump of the Trump-Ukraine saga, Prus also crossed paths with Team Trump's main target, Hunter Biden. Prus's LinkedIn page has an entry from 8 years ago showing a joint venture with Rosemont Realty, which was partially managed by Devin Archer, Hunter Biden's close friend. Prus said that's when he encountered the younger Biden, but said he did not introduce Biden to Burisma. Unlike Giuliani, Prus said he is reluctant to call for any investigation into Burisma, his friend Zlovchevsky's natural gas company. They have been investigated. The case is closed. I don't know details. Important thing, they are the largest independent gas company in Ukraine, very essential for conflict with Russia. They have to be supported, not attacked, he said. As for Hunter Biden, he said there's no crime to investigate. Whatever he did in Ukraine was highly unethical. He said there was no crime, but very bad judgment. And by the way, the unethical part is his dad's vice president, so he shouldn't be working overseas with overseas companies. So again, Ukraine is not like an opponent state. It's not an opponent ally at all. It's just it not one of those countries where, like, it's not Iran. You're not skirting sanctions to do it. So despite probing the Trump associates, there's no evidence that Hunter Biden, his father, the former vice president, current presidential candidate, acted improperly or violated any laws. Meanwhile, in politically charged congressional hearings in Washington, Giuliani's activities in Ukraine. Okay, but Bruce, who watched part of the hearings on television, said he doesn't have anything to do with the transpire between Trump, Giuliani, and Zelensky. I'm totally irrelevant to this story. Yes, so there we go. On that side note.
Then I got oceanfront property in Arizona I'd like to sell you.
Yeah, well, Biden is running on something else other than, gross abuse of power. He's running on Bidenomics. Now, generally speaking, America is seeing, falling wages, high inflation, skyrocketing gas prices.
No, not generally speaking. I mean, generally speaking, a year ago.
And here's one specific metric. In 2020, Americans need...
In 2020, when everything was shut down.
An annual income of around $56,000 to get a 30-year mortgage on a home. Today, just over 2 years later, you need almost double that amount to partake in the American dream of home ownership. Governor DeSantis, your take on Biden...
Yeah, in 2020. You want to go back to 2019?
Bidenomics.
Bidenomics is very simple. You pay more for less. At the end of the day, it
doesn't seem to be working out that way. But again, both Trump and Marianne Williamson are talking about a 180. Their plan is to 180 us. So the 500,000 jobs we added last month and the growing wages that went up 6%, they're like, that direction, we want to go the opposite. So factor that into your thinking. DeSantis agrees with
presents a rationalization for a declining standard of living.
Materially disagree.
For hardworking Americans. And I think what you pointed out with home prices is...
For hard work. Okay. Important distinction. Hardworking Americans is their code for what they would consider blue-collar jobs. As opposed to middle class or, managerial class, those kind of jobs, which aren't hardworking. I mean, they're long working, they're smart working, but they're not hard working. You'll find a lot of legalese in how he talks about this shit. And what they're trying to play at is that, and you can kind of create this number no matter how many there are, that ultimately the poor are always doing badly because they're poor. No matter if the number of poor is shrinking, no matter if what it means to be poor has expanded financially, that doesn't matter unless Trump is in office, in which case no one's poor.
That's exactly right. Given where interest rates are now, getting a traditional 3-bedroom, 2-bath house for a family is unattainable for a lot of people now. The amount you're paying in mortgage payments has gone up dramatically just since Biden has become president. You also have automobiles are increasingly becoming unattainable, and Biden wants to put all these green mandates and force you into an electric vehicle, which is going to make it even more difficult. And of course,
well, apparently not, because they aren't. Again, this is the idea of like he's going to AOC the shit out of you. That this is the scare tactic that that Biden is to the left of Bernie and AOC on everything. And anything they even bring up, it might be a good target 20 years down the line, is something Biden's going to force you to do by executive order any minute now, even though he's had a couple of years to do it.
Everybody's grocery bill has gone up dramatically. So when they say inflation,
no, it did, and then went back down.
Peaked at, say, 9%, and now it's, quote, a lot less at 5%. That only captures some of this. There's a lot more that's gone into this. People have paid way more than 9% year over year. And at the end of the day, Bidenomics with the inflation, that's an invisible crushing tax on every single American. The wealthy people do fine on it because they have financial assets. It's really those hardworking people that get swamped. I don't know why anybody would want to sign up for 4 more years of that.
I think it's because of the availability of jobs and wages. I mean, I don't want to totally jump on him with both feet, but they are. Let's see. We're gonna. One of the ways to see private sector job. I want to find the one that says job report with that adds the wages aspect to it. Okay. 3 years ago, some of the boost hirings in May. Here we go. The jobs report, things to watch. Okay. Non-farm payroll for expected. This was the early version of this. So this is from investing.com when so this was before. This is what they thought was coming. 1, jobs report. The non-farm payroll for June is expected to come out at 8:30 a.m. Analysts expect the economy added 225,000 jobs in June, down from the previous month. Labor participation rate. The government's jobs report will show the labor participation rate for June. Analysts are expecting the reading to stay the same at 62.6. Average wages are expected to rise 0.3% for the month and 4.2% for the year. The annualized number is a slight cooling from the previous reading. And this was the prediction for that. And now, let's see what the actual rate was. News. Let me go to here. I need the, let's see, jobs. I got up today, I guess. Yeah. Trying to find the one that has. We'll go to here. They should have all the numbers here. This is U.S. jobs market shows fresh strength. With ADP and layoff data, U.S. companies added almost 500,000 jobs last month. Job cuts by U.S. employers fell in June to an 8-month low. The U.S. labor market showed fresh signs of resilience on Thursday, boo, as private hiring surged, layoffs slowed, and filings for unemployment benefits stayed relatively low. The companies added almost 500,000 jobs last month, the most in over a year, according to data from ADP Research Institute in collaboration with Stanford Digital Economic Lab. Economy Lab. A separate report from Challenger Gray and Christmas Inc. showed announced job cuts by U.S. employers fell in June to an 8-month low. It was leisure and hospitality. People are getting out and doing shit more. It's the summer. Construction is the next biggest thing. Trade and utilities, education, health services, and that's during the summer break. Natural resources, mining, professional business services, and then the area where they lost jobs was in manufacturing, information, and financial services. And this is because of a rotation, but largely they're moving people. While the ADP data often differs from the government's employment report, which is due Friday, this was their plan, or whatever. Yeah, it turned out to be relatively dead on. It was also evidently the vacancies declined in May, unwinding the April surge. The labor market isn't always going to be this strong. Recessions happen, but today's data and data from the past several months continue to make a soft landing scenario increasingly likely. There you go. Continue to make a soft landing scenario increasingly likely. It seems like whatever they're doing is working, is the annoying part for all these folks. Treasury yields surged. S&P slumped following the reports, which will likely further solidify the case for Federal Reserve to raise interest rates at its meeting later in July. I don't think so. I think they're going to hold. Labor market remains too hot for the Fed's comfort, with little chance that the supply of skilled labor will surge. The Fed will likely need to maintain its higher for longer rate posture into the next year to suppress labor demand and sustainably rein in inflation. Meanwhile, I'm trying to find the wages aspect of it, because the wages went up as well. We'll look at that one in 1 second. Let me just find this. Let's see. Wages. News. Let's do this one. Trying to do this. I'm trying to find the singular. This is where minimum wages are rising in the summer. Nevada's lowest wage workers see pay increase with minimum wage hike. Talking to Bruce's pays the same wages as their office job. Job report, labor protection, hourly wages. 3 things. Oh, that was the old one. That's 7 hours ago. They went hourly expected. I don't know what the expected one is. Anyways, it went up 6%. Was the number, I believe, that was up there earlier. So, in general, let me go back to here. That's what they're trying to avoid.
Darn tootin'. Now, if you become the president of the United States, you'll be the commander-in-chief of our military. Democrats have turned our military into a social experimentation.
Oh, it's woke. Yeah, it's woke. Because apparently telling soldiers that they fight for everybody's freedoms, even the ones they don't like, is somehow wokeness.
Petri dish, compromising our readiness, in my opinion, and definitely they've compromised recruitment. At the same time, China continues to take our money, and they build bullets and bombs and airplanes and ships, oh my, Governor, to kill Americans. And Biden says he doesn't want to, quote, decouple from China, end quote. Now, how would a DeSantis administration tackle?
Well, partly they are decoupling. They're just using the de-risk and deleverage language to basically sneak out the side door without collapsing everything in on Apple and other groups that are there, including Tesla, by the way. One of the reasons why we're having to play footsie on our way out the door is because of Elon Musk.
Our military woes and our communist enemy, China.
Well, I had the fortune of volunteering to serve in the Navy, serving in Iraq, serving alongside a lot of...
Well, if you're in the Navy, you should know that while China has twice as many ships, we have twice the tonnage, which should tell you something about those ships.
Great patriots, wearing the cloth of your country, something that's very meaningful to me, and I know for other veterans. And yet, for the first time in my life, I have veterans coming up to me all the time saying, you know, I don't know that I'd want my kid or grandkid to join today's military, because exactly what you said, it's become a petri dish for social experimentation. They're putting political fads over military readiness. Morale is in the tank. Recruiting is at a generational low because people want to join a military that's mission focused. They don't want to join a military to be a cog in an overall social experiment. So we'll rip the woke out on day one.
Well, by the way, the U.S. military is part of a social experiment because we are a broad society under one constitution. We're not a racially homogenous autocratic space. That's new on the fucking planet. It's always been that way. Don't believe me? Ask the Tuskegee Airmen.
And here's the thing. China is absolutely a threat to us. Biden has been very weak on China. Obviously, he's had financial dealings his family has had with them.
No.
So they're being very, very weak with respect to China.
How so? I mean, that's a good sentence. I'm sure it sells. Salcedo buys it, but he's stupid. You got to convince other people. So tell me how he's been weak on China. What was the quo for the quid pro?
I would like to do more with our military to be able to combat China in the Pacific, because I think
we basically like do the same shit that we're going to have on the border. So what are you going to do? Open fire on them if anybody speaks Chinese in Taiwan?
We can deter them. However, you can't pour more resources into it until you fix the underlying culture. So that's a day one issue. There's going to be major changes.
What are you going to do? Put don't ask, don't tell back in place?
In all the armed services when I become president. I can tell you this, veterans around the country are going to rally to that. And you're going to see people going to be more willing to sign up for the military as a result of getting us focused back to the basics.
You don't think we have basic training?
Governor Ron DeSantis, I want to thank you for your visit today and also to your team. Your team has been incredible in their.
Thank you for arranging not only the questions that I was supposed to ask, but also the punchlines that you would be, I mean, I wouldn't call what I said a setup, but I wouldn't call what you said a punchline either. So thanks for being here and boring. We need a break after that. You're watching House Sparks Mega Worldwide. That's the guy who's, he's number 2.
I like fighting number 2.
On the Republican side, Trump is technically number 2, period.
I like fighting number 2.
And he's, I don't know if you know this, but Donald Trump is supposedly the most virile and powerful political force on the planet. And the way he shows it is by having half of his party support him.